in the intermediate stage or lower than you. Do not be disturbed by temporary distress or happiness. Fully control your mind and senses. In this transcendental position, try to execute your duty as king in whatever condition of life you may be posted by my arrangement. For your only duty here is to give protection to the citizens of your kingdom. Very, very good advice for a king. Let me read that again. My dear heroic king, please keep yourself always equipoised and treat people equally, whether they are greater than you in the intermediate stage or lower than you. Do not be disturbed by temporary distress or happiness. Fully control your mind and senses. In this transcendental position, try to execute your duty as king in whatever condition of life you may be posted by my arrangement. For your only duty here is to give protection to the citizens of your kingdom. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Here is an example of receiving direct instruction from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. One has to execute the order of Lord Vishnu, whether receiving it directly from him or from his bona fide representative, the spiritual master. Arjuna fought the battle of Kurukshetra under the direct order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Similarly, here, Prithu Maharaj is also being given orders by Lord Vishnu regarding the execution of his duty. We have to stick to the principles stated in the Bhagavad Gita. Vyavasayatmika buddhi. Every man's duty is to receive orders from Lord Krishna or from his bona fide representative and take these orders as his life and soul without personal considerations. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur states that one should not care very much whether he is going to be liberated or not, but he should simply execute the direct order received from the spiritual master. If one sticks to the principle of abiding by the order of the spiritual master, he will always remain in a liberated position. A common man must execute the rules and regulations of Varnashrama Dharma by working in his prescribed duty according to the caste system, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras, and the spiritual order system, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. If one simply executes regularly and strictly the injunctions given for the different divisions of life, then one satisfies Lord Vishnu. As a king, Prithu Maharaj was ordered by Lord Vishnu to keep himself always aloof from the activities of the bodily situation and to engage always in the service of the Lord and thus keep himself in the liberated stage. The word Bada Shohida in the previous verse is explained herewith. One can fully remain in intimate connection with the Supreme Lord directly or receive orders from his bona fide representative, the spiritual master, and execute the orders sincerely when one keeps aloof from the activities of the body. The Lord helps us by giving us direction how to act in devotional service and thus advance on the path back home, back to Godhead. He instructs us outwardly in the form of the spiritual master. Therefore, one should not accept the spiritual master as an ordinary human being. The Lord says, Acharyam mam, Acharyam mam, Vijanayan Nava Manyate Karachit. One should not treat the spiritual master as an ordinary human being, for he is the substitute for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam 11, 17, 27. One should treat the spiritual master as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and never be envious of him or consider him to be an ordinary human being. If we follow the instruction of the spiritual master and execute devotional service to the Lord, we will remain always free from the contamination of bodily and material activities, and our life will be successful. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Text number 14. To give protection to the general mass of people who are citizens of the state is the prescribed occupational duty for a king. By acting in that way, the king, in his next life, shares 1/6 of the result of the pious activities of the citizens. But a king or executive head of state who simply collects taxes from the citizens but does not give them proper protection as human beings has the results of his own pious activities taken away by the citizens. And in exchange for his not giving protection, he becomes liable to punishment for the impious activities of his subjects. Wow. Yeah. Better be careful if you're a king. The question may be raised here that if everyone engaged in spiritual activities to attain salvation and became indifferent to the activities of the material world, then how could things as they are going, how could things as they are going on?
As they are, go on.
I'm sorry. How could things as they are go on?
Basically, how could things as they are go on?
Okay. How could things as they are go on? Right. And if things are to go on as they ought to, how can a head of state be indifferent to such activities? In answer to this question, the word Shreya, which means auspicious, is used here. The division of activities in society is arranged by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Was not blindly or accidentally created, as foolish people say. The Brahmana must do his duty properly, and the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, and even the Sudra must do the same. And every one of them can achieve the highest perfection of life, liberation from this material bondage. That's the highest perfection of life. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 18:45. Sve sve karmani abhirata samsiddhim labhate nara. By executing one's prescribed duties, one can attain the highest perfection. Lord Vishnu advised Maharaj Prithu that a king is not equipped to give up his kingdom and the responsibility of protecting the prajas or citizens. It says the king is not enjoined to give up his kingdom and the responsibility of protecting the prajas or citizens. To instead go away to Himalayas for liberation. He can attain liberation while executing his royal duties. The royal duty, or the duty of the head of the state, is to see that the prajas, or the general mass of people, are doing their respective duties for spiritual salvation. A secular state does not necessitate a king or head of state who is indifferent to the activities of the prajas. Let me read that again. A secular state does not necessitate a king or head of state who is indifferent to the activities of the prajas. In a modern state, the government has many rules and regulations for conducting the duties of the prajas, but the government neglects to see that the citizens advance in spiritual knowledge. If the government is careless in this matter, the citizens will act whimsically, without any sense of God realization or spiritual life, and thus become entangled in spiritual and sinful activities. An executive head should not be callous to the welfare of the general mass of people while he simply goes on collecting taxes. The king's real duty is to see that the citizens gradually become fully Krishna conscious. Krishna consciousness means completely free from all sinful activities. As soon as there is complete eradication of sinful activities in the state, then there will be no more war, pestilence, famine, or natural disturbances. This was actually prevailing during the reign of Maharaj Yudhishthira. If a king or head of the government is able to induce the citizens to become Krishna conscious, then he is worthy to rule over the mass of people. Otherwise, he has no right to levy taxes. If the king looks after the spiritual interests of the citizens, he can levy taxes without difficulties. In this way, both the subjects and the king will be happy during this life. And in the next life, the king will be able to share 1/6 of the pious activities of the citizens. Otherwise, by levying taxes on the sinful citizens, he will have to share the reactions of their sinful activities. The same principle can be applied to parents and spiritual masters as well. If parents simply give birth to children like cats and dogs, but cannot save their children from imminent death, they become responsible for the activities of their animalistic children. Lately, such children are turning into hippies. Oh, wow. Similarly, if a spiritual master cannot direct his disciples to become free of sinful activities, he becomes responsible for their sinful acts. Oh my God. Let's read that again. If a spiritual master cannot direct his disciples to become free of sinful activities, he becomes responsible for their sinful acts. These subtle laws of nature are unknown to the present leaders of society.
Mhm.
Since the leaders of society have a poor fund of knowledge, and the citizens in general are rogues and thieves, there cannot be an auspicious situation for human society. At the present moment, the whole world is full of such incompatible combination of state and citizens, and therefore there is constant tension, war, and anxiety as an inevitable result of such social conditions. Wow. You got to be careful if you're a king. You have to be bona fide. to protect the citizens and make sure that they are following the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness. Text 15. Lord Vishnu continued, my dear King Prithu, if you continue to protect the citizens according to the instructions of the learned Brahmanas, learned Brahmana authorities, as they are received by the disciplic succession, by hearing from master to disciple, and if you follow the religious principles laid down by them, without attachment to ideas manufactured by mental concoction, then every one of your citizens will be happy and will love you. And very soon you will be able to see such you'll be able to see such already liberated personalities as the four Kumaras, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanandana, and Sanat Kumara. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Vishnu advised King Prithu that everyone should follow the principles of Varnashrama Dharma. Then, in whatever capacity one remains within this material world, his salvation is guaranteed after death. In this age, however, since the system of Varnashram Dharma is topsy-turvy, it is very difficult to strictly follow all the principles. The only method for becoming perfect in life is to develop Krishna consciousness. As Varnashrama Dharma is executed from different positions by different men, so the Krishna consciousness principles can be followed by everyone in every part of the world. Well, what is the Krishna consciousness principles? Chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and give up all sinful activities. There is a specific purpose in mentioning herein that one should follow the Dvija Giryas, the most prominent brahmanas like Parashara and Manu. These great sages have already given us instructions on how to live according to the principles of Varnashrama Dharma. Similarly, Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami have given us rules and regulations for becoming pure devotees of the Lord. It is essential, therefore, to follow the instructions of the acharyas in the parampara system, who have received the knowledge as passed down from spiritual master to disciple. In this way, although living in our material condition of life, we can get out of the entanglement of material contamination without leaving our positions. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advises, therefore, that one does not have to change his position. One simply has to hear from the perfect source. This is called parampara, and follow the principles for practical application in life. Thus, one can attain the highest perfection of life, liberation, and go back home, back to Godhead. In other words, the change required is a change in consciousness, not in the body. Unfortunately, in this fallen age, people are concerned with the body, not with the soul. They have invented so many isms pertaining to the body only, not to the soul. In the modern age of democracy, there are so many government representatives voting for legislation. Every day they bring out a new law, but because these laws are only mental concoctions manufactured by inexperienced conditioned souls, they cannot give relief to human society. Formerly, although the kings were autocrats, they strictly followed the principles laid down by the great sages and saintly persons. There were no mistakes in ruling over the country, and everything went perfectly. The citizens were completely pious. The king levied taxes legitimately, and therefore the situation was very happy. At the present moment, the so-called executive heads are more or less selected from the materially ambitious persons who simply look after their own personal interests, and they have no knowledge of the Shastras. In other words, the executive heads are fools and rascals and Sudras. And I'm sorry, fools and rascals in the strict sense of the term. And the people in general are Sudras. This combination of fools and rascals and Sudras cannot bring about peace and prosperity in this world. Therefore, we find periodic upheavals in society in the forms of battles, communal riots, and fratricidal quarrels. Under these circumstances, not only are the leaders unable to lead the people towards liberation, but they cannot even give them peace of mind. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that anyone who lives on concocted ideas without reference to the Shastras never becomes successful and does not attain happiness or liberation after death. Wow. That is a very profound statement. We should pay attention to that. Let's read that again. Under these, therefore, we find periodic upheavals in society in the forms of battles, communal riots, and fratricidal quarrels. Under these circumstances, not only are the leaders unable to lead the people toward liberation, but they cannot even give them peace of mind. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that anyone who lives on concocted ideas without reference to the Shastras never becomes successful and does not attain happiness or liberation after death. Wow. Text number 16. My dear King, I am very captivated by your elevated qualities and excellent behavior, and thus I am very favorably inclined toward you. You may therefore ask from me any benediction you like. One who does not possess elevated qualities and behavior cannot possibly achieve my favor simply by the performance of sacrifices, severe austerities, or mystic yoga. But I am always equipoised in the heart of one who is also equipoised in all circumstances. Well, yeah, you should remain steady in your practice of Krishna consciousness. Then you will be equipoised. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Vishnu is very pleased with Maharaj Prithu's good character and behavior and offered him a benediction. The Lord openly says that performing great sacrifices or undergoing the austerities of mystic yoga practice cannot satisfy him. He is pleased only by elevated character and behavior. But these cannot develop unless one becomes a pure devotee of the Lord. Anyone who has developed unalloyed, unflinching devotional service unto the Lord develops his original good qualities as spirit soul. The spirit soul, as part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has all the good qualities of the Lord. When the spirit soul is contaminated by the material modes of nature, one is considered good or bad with reference to the material qualities. But when one is transcendental to all material qualities, all the good qualities come out. These qualities of a devotee, 26 in number, are listed as follows. 1, kind to everyone. 2, does not quarrel with anyone. 3, fixed in the absolute truth. 4, equal to everyone. 5, faultless. 6, charitable. 7, mild. 8, clean. 9, simple. 10, benevolent. 11, peaceful. 12, completely attached to Krishna. 13, has no material hankering. 14, meek. 15, steady. 16, self-controlled. 17, does not eat more than required. 18, sane. 19, respectful. 20, humble. 21, grave. 22, compassionate. 23, friendly. 24, poetic. 25, expert. 26, silent. The Lord is satisfied by the development of the transcendental qualities of the living entity and not by artificial performance of sacrifices and mystic yoga. In other words, unless one is fully qualified to become a pure devotee of the Lord, one cannot expect to be liberated from the material entanglements. Okay, so these are 26 qualities that a devotee must develop by their activities in Krishna consciousness. Text 17. The great sage Maitreya continued, my dear Vidura, in this way, Maharaj Prithu, the conqueror of the entire world, accepted the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead on his head. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. One should accept the instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by bowing down at the lotus feet of the Lord. This means that anything spoken by the Personality of Godhead should be taken as it is, with great care and attention, and with great respect. It is not our business to amend the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or make additions or alterations, as it has become custom for many so-called scholars and swamis who comment on the words of Bhagavad Gita. Here, the practical example of how to accept the instruction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is shown by Prithu Maharaj. This is the way to receive knowledge through parampara system. As King Indra was standing by, he became ashamed of his own activities and fell down before King Prithu to touch his lotus feet. But Prithu Maharaj immediately embraced him in great ecstasy and gave up all envy against him for his having stolen the horse meant for the sacrifice. Indra was a very naughty person. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There are many cases in which a person becomes an offender to the lotus feet of a Vaishnava and later becomes repentant. Here also we find that although the king of heaven, Indra, was so powerful that he accompanied Lord Vishnu, he felt himself a great offender for stealing Prithu Maharaj's horse that was meant for sacrifice. Well, that was because of his enviousness. An offender at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava is never excused by the Supreme Personality of God. There are many instances illustrating this fact. Ambarisha Maharaj was offended by Durvasa Muni, a great sage and mystic, yogi. And Durvasa also had to fall down at the lotus feet of Ambarisha Maharaj. Indra decided to fall down at the lotus feet of King Prithu. But the king was so magnanimous, a Vaishnava, that he did not want Maharaja Indra to fall down at his feet. Instead, King Prithu immediately picked him up and embraced him, and both of them forgot all the past incidents. Both King Indra and Maharaja Prithu were envious and angry with each other. But since both of them were Vaishnavas or servants of Lord Vishnu, it was their duty to adjust the cause of their envy. This is also a first class example of cooperative behavior between Vaishnavas. In the present days, however, because people are not Vaishnavas, they fight perpetually among one another and are vanquished without finishing the mission of human life. There is a great need to propagate the Krishna consciousness movement in the world so that even though people sometimes become angry and malicious toward one another because of their being Krishna conscious, such rivalry, competition, and envy can be adjusted without difficulty. Okay, well, the takeaway here is there is a great need to propagate the Krishna consciousness movement in the world so that even though people sometimes become angry and malicious toward one another because of their being Krishna conscious, such rivalry, competition, and envy can be adjusted without difficulty. That's because the devotees are actually following the regulative principles and have understood what their responsibilities are and do not compromise them because of sense gratification and personal, let's say, desires. Rather, they should have pure desires to please the Lord, not corrupted desires to please themselves and develop havoc in society. Text 19. King Prithu abundantly worshipped the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who was so merciful to him. While worshiping the lotus feet of the Lord, Prithu Maharaja gradually increased his ecstasy in devotional service. While that should be the culture of devotees, they should gradually increase their ecstasy in devotional service. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. When various ecstasies appear in the body of a devotee, it is to be understood that his devotional service has become perfect. There are many types of transcendental ecstasies in the form of crying, laughing, perspiring, falling down, and crying like a madman. All these symptoms are sometimes visible in the body of a devotee. They are called Astasatvika Vikara, which means 8 kinds of transcendental transformations. They are never to be imitated, but when a devotee actually becomes perfect, these symptoms are visible on his body. The Lord is Bhakta Vatsala, which means that he is inclined toward his pure devotee the bhakta. Therefore, the transcendental ecstatic transaction between the Supreme Lord and his devotee is never like the activities of this material world. Yeah, the relationships of a genuine devotee and his spiritual master or other devotees also are full of love and devotion, not envy and jealousy. Text 20. The Lord was just about to leave, but because he was so greatly inclined toward the behavior of King Prithu, he did not depart. Seeing the behavior of Maharaj Prithu with his lotus eyes, he was detained because he is always the well-wisher of his devotees. Here, the words Surit Satam are very significant. The Supreme Personality Godhead is always very inclined toward his devotee and is always thinking of the devotee's well-being. This is not partiality. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord is equal to everyone. Samaham sarvabhutesu. But to one who particularly engages in his service, he is very much inclined. In another place, the Lord says that a devotee always exists in his heart, and he exists always in the heart of the devotee. The special inclination of the Supreme Personality of Godhead for his pure devotee is not unusual, nor is it partiality. For example, sometimes the father has several children, but he has special affection for one child who is very much inclined towards him. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita 10.10. Te sam satata yuktanam pachitam pratipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. Those who constantly engage in the devotional service of the Lord in love and affection are directly in contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sitting as the Supersoul in everyone's heart. The Lord is not far away from the devotee. He is always in everyone's heart, but only the devotee can realize the Lord's presence, and thus he is directly connected and he takes instruction from the Lord at every moment. Therefore, there's no chance of a devotee being in error, nor is there any partiality on the part of the Lord for his pure devotee. Text 21. The original king, Maharaj Prithu, his eyes full of tears and his voice faltering, choked up, could neither see the Lord very distinctly nor speak to address the Lord in any way. He simply embraced the Lord within his heart and remained standing in that way with folded hands. Just as Krishna is addressed in the Brahma Samhita as Adi Purusha, the original personality, so King Prithu, being an empowered incarnation of the Lord, is referred to in this verse as Adi Raja, the original or ideal king. He was a great devotee and at the same time a great hero who conquered over all undesirable elements in his kingdom. He was so powerful that he was equal in fighting to Indra, the king of heaven. He gave protection to his citizens, keeping them engaged in pious activities and devotion to the Lord. He did not collect a single cent of taxes from the citizens without being able to give them protection from all calamities. So that's a real leader in society. He protects the citizens so that they are not in anxiety or fear, and they can peacefully execute the principles of Krishna consciousness. If the leader cannot protect the citizens, then he's not a leader, and and he'll be thrown out very soon. The greatest calamity in life is to become godless and therefore sinful. If the state head or king allows the citizens to become sinful by indulging in illicit sex life, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling, then the king is responsible and he has to suffer the resultant sequence of reactions for the sinful lives of the citizens because he levies taxes on them unnecessarily. These are the principles for a ruling power. And because Maharaj Prithu observed all the principles for a ruling chief, he is referred to here as Adi Raja, the original king. Even a responsible king like Maharaj Prithu can become a pure devotee of the first order. We can distinctly see from King Prithu's behavior how he became ecstatic, both externally and internally, in pure devotional service. Just today, we have seen in the newspapers of Bombay that the government is going to repeal its prohibition laws. Oh, that's miserable. Ever since Gandhi's non-cooperation movement, Bombay has been kept dry and has not allowed its citizens to drink, meaning that liquor was not permitted. But unfortunately, the citizens are so clever that they have increased illicit distillation of liquor, and although not being sold publicly in shops, liquor is being sold in public lavatories, meaning public lavatories. You go to pass stool in a lavatory, yeah. And similar abnormal places, unable to check such illicit smuggling. The government has decided to manufacture the liquor at cheaper prices so that people can have their supply of intoxication directly from the government instead of purchasing it in public laboratories. The government failed to change the hearts of the citizens from indulging in sinful life. So instead of losing the taxes they collect to inflate the treasury, they have decided to manufacture liquor to supply to the citizens who hanker after it. Well, today, even in a small community in India, you can see 3 or 4 liquor houses. That was not there previously, but things have become so corrupted, and there is definitely an intoxication, what you would call intoxication. Um, uh, People are getting intoxicated very regularly in India now.
Yeah.
They'll work hard during the day, and then they'll come home and start drinking liquor, and then they'll beat their wife and kids, because they're drunk. This is very bad, very bad model. But that's what happens when you are attracted to liquor. You might say, well, I only drink wine, and I heard that wine is good for my health. This kind of government cannot check the resultant actions of sinful life. namely war, pestilence, famine, earthquakes, and similar other disturbances. Nature's law is that as soon as there are discrepancies in regard to the law of God, which are described in Bhagavad Gita as dharma shaglani, or disobedience to the laws of nature or God, at once there will be heavy punishment in the form of sudden outbreaks of war. We have recently experienced a war between India and Pakistan. Within 14 days, there have been immense losses of men and money, and there have been disturbances to the entire world. These are the reactions of sinful life. The Krishna consciousness movement is meant to make people pure and perfect. If we become even partially pure, as described in the Bhagavatam, nasta prayes svabhadresu, by development of Krishna consciousness, then lust and greed, the material diseases of the citizens, will be reduced. This can be made possible simply by broadcasting the pure message of Srimad Bhagavatam, or Krishna consciousness. Big commercial and industrial firms have contributed many thousands of rupees to a defense fund that burns the money in the form of gunpowder. But unfortunately, if they are asked to contribute liberally to advance the Krishna consciousness movement, they are reluctant. Under the circumstances, the world will periodically suffer from such upsurges and outbreaks of war, which are the consequences of not being Krishna conscious. Yeah, so the government should fund Krishna consciousness if the devotees are genuinely spreading Krishna consciousness to the general population. Then their meritorious activity should be funded by the government. Okay. Text 22. The Supreme Personality of Godhead stood with his lotus feet almost touching the ground while he rested the front of his hand on the raised shoulder of Garuda, the enemy of the snakes. Maharaj Prithu, wiping the tears from his eyes, tried to look upon the Lord, but it appeared that the king was not fully satisfied by looking at him. Thus the king offered the following prayers, purport by Srila Prabhupada. The significant point in this verse is that the Lord was standing above ground, almost touching it. In other words, his feet were not touching the ground. The residents of the upper planetary systems, beginning from Brahmaloka, the planet where Lord Brahma lives, down to Swargaloka, the heavenly planet of Indra, are so advanced in spiritual life that when they come to visit this or similar other lower planetary systems, they keep their weightlessness. This means that they can stand without touching the ground. Lord Vishnu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but because he lives in one of the planetary systems within this universe, he sometimes plays as if one of the demigods of this universe. When he first appeared before Prithu Maharaj, he was not touching the ground of this earth. But when he was fully satisfied with the behavior and character of Maharaj Prithu, he immediately acted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana, from Vaikuntha. Out of affection for Prithu Maharaj, he touched the earth, but he rested the front of his hand on the raised shoulder of Garuda, his carrier, as if to prevent himself from falling down, since the Lord is not accustomed to stand on earthly ground. These are the symptoms of his great affection for Prita Maharaj. Perceiving his fortunate position, Prita Maharaj could not fully look upon the Lord due to ecstasy, but still, in a faltering voice, he began to offer prayers. Wow. You can see how there are many uh, states of ecstatic love to be expressed in Krishna consciousness when one is a pure devotee. My dear Lord, you are the best of the demigods. This is Prithu Maharaj speaking. Who can offer benedictions? Why, therefore, should any learned person ask you for benedictions meant for living entities bewildered by the modes of nature? Such benedictions are available automatically, even in the lives of living entities suffering in hellish conditions. My dear Lord, you can certainly bestow merging into your existence, but I do not wish to have such a benediction. Yeah, devotee does not want to have a benediction that stops him from serving the Lord. He wants to always serve the Lord with love and devotion, and in any condition. It might be a hellish condition, or it might be a spirit, elevated condition, but he always engages in the service of the Lord. There are different kinds of benedictions according to a person's demands. For karmis, the best benediction is promotion to the higher planetary systems, where the duration of life is very long and the standard of living and happiness is very high. There are others, namely Gyanis and Yogis, who want the benediction of merging into the existence of the Lord. This is called Kaivalya. The Lord is therefore addressed as Kaivalya Pati, the master or Lord of the benediction known as Kaivalya. But devotees receive a different type of benediction from the Lord. The devotees are anxious neither for heavenly planets or for merging into the existence of the Lord. According to devotees, Kaivalya, or merging into the existence of the Lord, is considered as good as hell. The word Naraka means hell. Similarly, everyone who exists in this material world is called Naraka, because this material existence itself is known as hell, as a hellish condition of life. Prita Maharaj, however, expressed that he was interested neither in the benediction desired by the karmis nor that desired by the jnanis and yogis. Srila Prabhu Ananda Saraswati Prabhu, a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, described that Kaivalya is no better than a hellish condition of life. And as for the delights of the heavenly planets, they are factually will-o'-the-wisps, or phantasmagoria, in other words, illusory. They are not wanted by devotees. Devotees do not even care for the positions held by Lord Brahma or Lord Shiva, nor does a devotee desire to become equal with Lord Vishnu. As a pure devotee of the Lord, Prita Maharaj made his position very clear. Well, in the same way, we should make our position in life very clear. What does that mean? We should be completely dedicated to serving Krishna with humility and love, not be hell-bent on enjoying the so-called amenities of the material world. That means that we're willing to control our senses by regulated devotional service on a daily basis, every day, throughout life. Okay, so also, Kaivalya means that you merging into the body of the Lord is not at all, uh, let's say, desired by devotees. The devotees want to keep their identity and not merge into something. They want to maintain their identity and continue their uninterrupted devotional service to the Lord in any condition of life. My dear Lord, I therefore do not wish to have the benediction of merging into your existence, a benediction in which there is no existence of the nectarian beverage of your lotus feet. That's a nice statement. A nectarian beverage of your lotus feet. I want the benediction of at least 1,000,000 ears, for thus I may be able to hear about the glories of your lotus feet from the mouths of your pure devotees. Wow, that's a beautiful verse. Very beautiful verse, which explains the real culture of devotees. In the previous verse, Prithu Maharaj addressed the Lord as Kaivalyapati, the master of the liberation of merging into his existence. This does not mean that he was anxious for Kaivalya liberation. That is made clear in this verse. My dear Lord, I do not want such a benediction. Maharaj Prithu wanted to have 1,000,000 ears to hear the glories of the lotus feet of the Lord. He specifically mentioned that the glories of the Lord should emanate from the mouths of pure devotees who speak from the cores of their heart. It is stated in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.3, Sukhamukad Amrita Drava Samyutam. The nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam become more relishable because it emanated from the mouth of Srila Sukadeva Goswami. One might think that these glories of the Lord can be heard from anywhere, from the mouths of either devotees or non-devotees. But here it is specifically mentioned that the glories of the Lord must emanate from the mouth of pure devotees. Shri Sanatana Goswami is strictly prohibited hearing from the mouth of a non-devotee. There are many professional reciters of Srimad Bhagavatam who speak the narrations very ornamentally, but a pure devotee does not like to hear from them because such glorification of the Lord is simply a vibration of material sound. But when heard from the mouth of a pure devotee, glorification of the Lord is immediately effective. The words Satam Prasangam Mamaviryas Samvido Vida, Bhagavatam 3:25-25 means that glorification of the Lord is potent when uttered from the mouth of a pure devotee. The Lord has innumerable devotees all over the universe, and they have been glorified, and they have been glorifying the Lord since time immemorial and for an unlimited time. But still, they cannot completely finish enumerating the glories of the Lord. Prithu Maharaj, therefore, wanted innumerable ears, as Rupa Goswami also desired to have millions of ears and millions of tongues to chant and hear the glorification of the Lord. In other words, if our ears are always engaged in hearing the glorification of the Lord, There will be no scope for hearing the Mayavada philosophy, which is doomed to spiritual progress. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that if anyone hears from a Mayavadi philosopher preaching about the activities of the Lord, even if it is a description from the Vedic literature, he is ultimately doomed by hearing. He is ultimately doomed. By hearing such Mayavada philosophy, one cannot come to the destination of spiritual perfection of life. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So this is our takeaway today, where this verse says, "My dear Lord, I therefore do not wish to have the benediction of merging into your existence." That's called Kaivalya. A benediction in which there's no existence of the nectarian beverage of your lotus feet. Nectarian beverage of your lotus feet. I want the benediction of at least 1,000,000 ears, for thus I may be able to hear about the glories of your lotus feet from the mouths of your pure devotees. That is our takeaway today. Fantastic verse. And also, it says, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that if anyone hears from a Mayavadi philosopher preaching about the activities of the Lord, even if it is a description from the Vedic literature, he is ultimately doomed. By hearing such Mayavada philosophy, one cannot come to the destination of spiritual perfection of life. Okay, so don't listen from Satguru and other Mayavadis. Just listen to Prabhupada and the Vaishnava Acharyas. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions? We'll stop there. But there are some questions or comments. You can ask them. Any questions or comments? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, my dear devotees, thank you very, very much. Please chant your 16 good rounds today and take some nice prasadam and get ready for kirtan tonight. Haribol. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. So there doesn't seem to be any questions.
Yeah, none.
So then we will say thank you very much. And we'll see you again. What is it like? 11 hours from now.
Yeah.
Haribol. Thank you, my dear devotees. Have a very good day. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare